Welcome. If you found your way here, there's a reason. Maybe cancer has touched your life or someone you love. And maybe beneath everything that's happening, you can feel this isn't just a physical journey. There's something deeper here. This space is for that. Here, we honour the medical path, and we also honour the inner one, because mindset is medicine. My name is Giselle Gamby, and I'm your host, and I am a cancer coach. You are not alone. Welcome to Cancer and Courage. Hello, Cancer and Courage community. This is a very, very important episode. In fact, if healing from cancer is your priority, this episode and its message is a priority that I'm flagging for you. This episode is dedicated to the power of energetics. And when I speak about energetics, what I'm talking about is the energy from which you orientate yourself, the energy from which you hold yourself, through which you hold your cancer, through which you hold your treatment, and through which you hold your healing. I'm going to use an analogy, so bear with me, because I think it will be powerful for you to hear, of me describing the power of energetics, first of all, not in a cancer context. First of all, I'm going to speak about it from my own personal experience running my own business, which I have been doing since 2004. So when I speak to my experience, you might be self-reflecting on how you have been holding yourself through the cancer journey. And yes, I will make the translation into the cancer journey once I've shared my personal experience. So let's start with the Giselle before my big shift, where my business became successful and really beautifully profitable. So before that time, I was facilitating workshops and I was coaching, and my clients were experiencing extraordinary results. But in terms of my own profitability, I was not experiencing extraordinary results. And why was that the case? Because of the energetics, because of the energetics of how I was holding myself, how I was holding my business, and the way that I was leading my business, all from the energetics. So at that time, I believed that I didn't know how to run a business. I believed that there were experts, particularly marketing experts and sales experts, that knew how to lead a business and that had the strategies that I needed to learn from them and employ in my business. And should I employ those strategies from these experts, that my business would then be successful? Well, I tried all of those strategies after spending lots and lots of money on marketing and sales experts. And they did absolutely nothing except for create a whole lot of anxiety in me because nothing was turning my business around, no matter how much I was doing and how much I was implementing, how loyally I was listening to them and taking on board their advice and their ways. So why was that? Why did that not work? Because there was a fundamental flaw in how I was holding myself. And that is that I believed that they had all the power, that they had all the knowing and the know-how. And conversely, that I didn't. that I was powerful as a coach and as a facilitator, but as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I did not believe that I had the power within me. And so I looked outside of myself to others. How I was also orienting myself in believing that I did not have the power and that the power existed in the experts was that there was a level of undeservedness going on there. And there was a level of lack of self-trust. And there was a level of lack of faith in that the universe was conspiring in my favor. Because where did I put the power? I put the power with the sales and marketing experts. After I realized that that wasn't working, and not knowing actually what the answer was, I had an epiphany. And the epiphany was this: why were my clients having extraordinary results? Because the way that I was leading my sessions was from my intuition, from my knowing. And ironically, from my seeing them in their power, ironically, seeing them in their highest version of themselves, even though they sometimes couldn't see it. Ironically, because I knew that they had the power, that the power resided in them. And so the epiphany was, well, if my intuition has created extraordinary results or enabled others to have extraordinary results, maybe I just need to engage my intuition in the whole of my business. Maybe I just need to engage my intuition in relation to the sales process, in relation to how I express myself, and in relation to the strategies that I would receive from my intuition. That epiphany that I was in complete awe of literally changed things overnight for me. Not exaggerating. Literally changed things overnight for me from a financial profitability point of view. Not exaggerating. So in that, I remembered that I had the power, that it was within me. I remembered that I was also deserving of success. I remembered that I could trust myself. It didn't mean that I didn't go and engage other coaches along the way, because I have since then, but the power is within me. The deservedness is within me. The self-trust is here. The knowingness resides within me about what feels right and about what doesn't feel right. And absolutely, because of all of that, I know that the universe is conspiring in my favor and orchestrating things for me on my behalf. So let's translate that now to the cancer journey. Traditionally speaking, in the cancer journey, or in any medical journey, where does the power reside? It's really obvious. It resides in the doctors and the medical experts. And of course, they have so much knowledge based on all of their education and based on all of their experience, and we are in huge appreciation and in full honor of who they are, their dedication, their devotion, all their service. We are in huge honoring and appreciation of that. But where we get it wrong is when we believe that they have the power, that they have the strategy to our healing, and that all the knowing resides within them. And so where we get it wrong, when we hand all of our power over to the medical profession, is that there is no space for self-empowerment. There is no space to orientate in a place of self-agency. There is no space for us to orientate from a place of presence and knowing and intuition. There is no space for the will to self-lead in our healing. There is no space for that because we've handed it all over to the medical profession and to doing what the medical profession wants us to do, with all of their best intentions, of course. And here is the thing. When we are in this paradigm, fear is the predominant emotion that we are orienting in. Fear is the predominant state of being that we find ourselves in. And so therefore, fear is the energy through which we are holding our cancer journey, through which we are identifying ourselves in our cancer journey, and through which we are responding to the treatment that we are being given. And that is going to create a certain outcome. When fear is what is sitting behind the scenes, it's not even sitting behind the scenes, it's predominant, it's in your face. When fear is sitting in our beingness, it doesn't matter how much we do to heal. It doesn't matter how many treatments and protocols we loyally take on. If fear is the predominant emotion sitting there, it is going to be counterproductive. Now, the truth is that anybody going through a terminal illness journey will always have fear as part of the process. It's human. What I'm talking about is when fear is the predominant, it has the balance of power, it is counterproductive to the treatment that we are undergoing. So conversely, if you embrace the cancer journey as a human experience, as a human opportunity, as a very, very big human opportunity, intense opportunity, to come into a place of self-empowerment, to come into a place of remembering that even though I have been diagnosed with this cancer, I still have the ability to choose how I respond. And because I have the ability to choose how I respond, I have a level of power over my cancer. I have a level of agency over my cancer. I have a level of deservedness that I can lead myself through to my healing. I have a level of trust within myself to lead myself through to my healing. And I have a level of knowing and intuition that is going to point me to exactly the right people, to exactly the right medical experts, to exactly the right support, to exactly the right treatments and protocols. So do you see the difference between when we give our power away, when we think others, of course, because of their expertise, their education, their devotion, their dedication, their love. So easy to give our power away and think that they know everything and that our healing is entirely dependent on what they say we should do, and the prognosis that they give us. It's so easy, of course, it's so easy to go and give our power away and just subjugate ourselves to evidence, statistics to the story of that particular cancer. Of course, it's so easy to do that. And I believe that any type of crisis, whether it be a health crisis, whether it be a relationship crisis, whether it be a business, financial failure crisis, I believe that any crisis, death, which was my story with my baby, I believe that crisis is a catalyst for us to remember that who we are is an infinitely powerful being. Now, that doesn't mean that we are always going to create the outcomes that we would prefer. Did I create the outcome that I preferred? And that was that my baby, who died when he was 11 days old, would live a perfectly normal life. Did I create that outcome? No, I did not. Do some of the people that I coach who have cancer pass away? Yes, some people do. But as that infinitely powerful being that we are, that crisis and chaos catalyze the opportunity for us to remember that. To remember that we have the power, that we have the choice, that we have the agency, that we have the power to perceive what this experience is in service to in its highest purpose. We have the power, therefore, and not everybody is going to get this, but the people who do will. We have the power, therefore, to hold our healing in its multidimensionality. Some people will go into remission. Some people will go and live the most authentic, free, purposeful, joyful, peaceful lives, catalyzed by cancer. I've seen it. I hold space for it. It's a great intention of mine. And some people will not. That they may, along the way, if they have chosen to remember that they are the infinitely powerful being that they are, will create miracles on other levels. And again, not everybody is going to understand that, but some people will. It's a tall order. It takes a really high level of seeing to be able to accept that miracles come in the form of remission. And sometimes miracles come in different forms. So let's take this back to business just for the last time so that you can compare and contrast the cancer journey. When strategy in the business world is born from fear, when fear is what is sitting in the background, just like initially when cancer is diagnosed, fear is the predominant emotion sitting there, not even in the background, sitting there in your face. When fear is the predominant emotion sitting in the background in business, what will be employed will be the rational mind only, as opposed to the intuitive mind that requires a lot of trust and faith. What can be created can only be created in linear time and space, meaning 1 + 1 will only ever equal 2, meaning that there's a sequence and order to things, a logical sequence and order to things, that if I do this, then I will get that. And strategy that has fear sitting in the background can only ever create what has been created before. It cannot defy the odds. There is no ability to raise the stakes. There is no ability to create a monumental shift and result. There is no ability for that. In fact, more than likely, what is going to happen when fear is the predominant driver is that nothing will move, or there will be more of the same. And the same will be things that are not preferred. Whereas strategy born from, in business, from a place of self-empowerment, from a place of deservedness, from a place of agency and will and self-trust and faith, has the ability to absolutely defy the odds, has the ability to create results that are beyond linear time and space. That epiphany that I had, I told you, not a word of a lie, things changed overnight for me. When we are holding the cancer journey, it is fundamental to be aware of the energetics from which you are holding yourself, from which you are defining yourself in this cancer journey, from which you are holding the medical profession, and from which you are holding the ability to heal. I had a session this afternoon with somebody, and she was talking about how when she goes into her doctor's appointments and when she goes in to have treatment, she sees really, really, really sick people. And understandably, it really throws her off. It allows her to really face up to the fact that she has a tumor in her brain and fear is really in her face, understandably so. And I said, of course, because most of the people, in those rooms are not aware of the energetics from which they are coming from, through which they are holding themselves. At this point of time, and I pray that things will accelerate here, it is the minority of people who will appreciate that energetics is also medicine, that energetics is also fundamental to the healing journey. And so whilst it's not the majority of people that think this way, it is very confronting walking into a hospital or a treatment centre when most people are living in the character and the storyline of cancer held predominantly in fear. It's extremely confronting. So therefore, it is so important. The one thing that you have control over is how you hold yourself. If you want to be inspired, go and read a book by Dr. Viktor Frankl, In Man's Search for Meaning. A hugely inspiring book I read many, many years ago. He was in a Nazi concentration camp, and the one thing that he knew he had control over in an environment where he had zero control was the choices that he made for himself, which actually ultimately, because he was making choices from a place of integrity all the way through, ultimately it was the reason why he was actually saved and now lives to tell the tale. Actually, I don't know if he's alive still, but he lived to tell the tale. Go and read that book. Energetics is as fundamental to your treatment and protocols, if not even more, because it's the energetics that influence how you move through this cancer journey. It's the energetics that influence how you hold yourself in the cancer journey. It's also the energetics that influences what turns up in your life along the cancer journey. The doctors that are the perfect match for you or not. The protocols and treatments that are the perfect match for you or not. Other support people that are the perfect match for you or not. Energetics is the primary influence alongside your treatment to your healing journey. Before I end this episode, I've talked a lot about the danger of fear being the predominant state of being in relation to your healing. I want to reassure you that it is very, very human to feel fear regularly along the cancer journey. And just because you feel fear regularly along the cancer journey does not mean that you are working against yourself always. I just needed to say that. It is when it is the predominant state of being that you are holding yourself in and seeing your cancer through the eyes of fear and carrying yourself in fear as the predominant state of being, meaning that it overwhelms you most of the time. Now, I also need to say that at the beginning, when someone is diagnosed, of course it is going to be overwhelming. It is going to take people out. The person that I spoke to this afternoon told me that she was in bed for weeks, completely distraught for the fear of dying. It is normal at the beginning of the journey when you have been given this news that more than likely you never expected. So what I'm talking about is along the journey, it is fundamental to keep that fear in check, to love it when it comes, to love it when it's here, to have compassion for self when it's here, and then to choose to place your focus in a more empowering place. I hope this final little addendum that I felt to add to this podcast episode was valuable for the one who may have thought, oh my God, I am messing everything up because I feel fear. It is normal to feel fear. And it is empowering to remember that the power lies within you as to how you hold yourself through this journey. May this episode be the medicine you did not know you were looking for. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.